ever wonder what happens when you stop pretending and feel? I am Amanda Andrade, founder of Mastering Relationships Academy and author of If You Allow It, You Can Feel It. This is the Journey Unscripted podcast, real conversations, unscripted moments, and the emotional truths that connect us all. On today's episode, meet Amy Cooper is a board-certified family nurse practitioner with over 30 years of experience in healthcare and the founder of Amethyst Wellness. With a doctorate in nursing practice and training from institutions like Georgetown University, the University of San Diego, and the University of Florida, Dr. A blends deep clinical expertise with a holistic approach to well being. She's also the host of Energize and Revitalize with Dr. A Wellness podcast for high performing women and a man who want more strength, balance, and vitality at any age. Welcome, Dr. Amy, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just a pleasure to meet you and to talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about this beautiful life of serving others, because basically we are here serving others. And what I found very fascinating that we are both podcasters and we are just now exchange this beautiful energy. And so I would like to just dive in and just listen and to share with our audience. How did you get started with your practitioner, right? With your practice first, like serving others, like through healthcare.
Yes. So I became a nurse 30 years ago, and I started out as an ICU nurse, taking care of very, very sick people. Many of them didn't make it out of the hospital. And I really developed a need to help people prevent themselves from becoming that way. So when I became a nurse practitioner, I had a really strong focus on preventive healthcare mode. So I actually developed the idea for Amethyst Wellness about 10 years before I actually was able to do it.
Wow. So the idea that came in
Yes.
your consciousness and you were just
Yes.
working through that?
Yes. So I read a book written by a nurse practitioner, and she had had her own practice, and I went through it, and I had this idea of how we could do preventive healthcare and do it in a spa-like setting. And it actually, that idea was very different from what I do now, but there were some similarities as well. So a big barrier I had at that time, I was in the military. And so I was an Army nurse and an Army nurse practitioner. So I was getting out, getting ready to enter private practice. And I realized I knew nothing about how things were outside of the military. So
Yeah.
it just wasn't the right time. So I put the book back on the shelf and I worked in the private sector, mostly at the health department, actually, in our county. And there I worked with a lot of kids. So I saw, and I don't have the exact statistic, but pediatric obesity has become a really huge issue for our population.
I know.
Yes, yes. So we see children. Yeah,
No, I was just saying I was not even aware about that. And
yes,
I do believe that our audience also, some would be aware and other people would not be aware. And we are talking about the future generations coming with, getting their life way
yes.
of. Yeah, so please go ahead. And thank you for sharing.
So what I saw were children with high blood pressure and high cholesterol and fatty liver. So when the adipose tissue accumulates around the belly, it can infiltrate the organs. And so I was seeing that in children. They weren't even teenagers yet. So I became a really yes,
It is so sad because everything started with the parents, like the
yeah,
education, the awareness, right? And if
yes,
the parents are not having the awareness, they cannot apply with the children's. So then become that snowball from parents to the kids, and you are what witness that. And yeah, how was it to witness that and just to have your practitioner practice?
yes. So very, very challenging. So at this point, I was working on my doctorate. And so I decided to focus on pediatric obesity for my specialty.
Oh
And
no.
so I developed programs to help teach the kids
Mhm.
about dietary choices, how to choose healthier options. So it was a lot of fun actually working with the kids
I bet
because of my
because they are
job.
very creative too.
Yes, yes. Because of my job at the health department, I had access, to a lot of children, and unfortunately for them, they were kind of a captive audience. Um, so we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and especially because we see so much genuinity on them, right? They don't know anything about the word that they are going through. They are very like a pure. It's a pure divine. They are just like developing all of those beliefs, all of those vision of life through their own environment. So they are absorbing all of that. That's why I mentioned to you that comes from the parents, but and then you are doing that beautiful work, which is the education. You are educating them to prevent any illness in the future or even in the present moment because they were already experienced that. And what I would like to ask you, how was it that interaction with the parents on the mindset level? Because everything's about mindset.
Yeah, so that was very challenging actually working with the parents. In our society, we have, and not just parents and children, but we have this relationship with food that, food, of course, is there to nourish us. And of course, it's there for enjoyment. But it's almost the best way I can describe it is, I would say, okay, I would talk to the parent about the child and, maybe healthier choices. And let's say the mother would say, yes, I tell him he can't have the chips, but he'll sneak them. And I said, "Of course he will, because he's a kid, and of course he wants that treat." And I
Yes.
said, "I know this is crazy, but what if the chips weren't in the house? And why should everyone suffer because he has a problem?" And I was like, so not having chips, and they weren't trying to be irresponsible, but in her mind, not having chips was a hardship and a punishment. Um,
Wow.
so just to kind of, and and that's, very ingrained in some people, and it's really hard, at a 15-minute appointment to say, well, maybe there's another way. So so that's why
Yeah.
even though, as a parent, we control what's in our house for the most part, uh, I really focused on the kids and trying to convince the kids that fruits and vegetables are good, you know,
And all of that.
easier said than done.
And let me ask you, are you a mother?
I am, yes.
So you totally understand and have the communality to the point of like, yes, I know how it is challenge, but also I don't have kids, right? However, I have this sense of like, okay, if I understand and if I am having this way of being with myself, I'm going to present that for the family in the best way that that can be. I'm not going to remove everything at the same time because it's going to be impossible to sustain the new lifestyle, right? So it's really like being playful with the kids and just like insert the right food at the beginning of the stage so this way they can get used to it. But and then I would like to ask you, what was it the time that you had to shift something in your nutrition that was challenge for you, and how did you made it that shift with your kids and with yourself too?
Yes, yes. So I was a very unpopular parent. So when your kid is in sports or some kind of activity and you have to take turns bringing the snacks, and I would bring like whole fruit pops and things that were healthier, and my kids would be like, "Oh man, mom, come on!" And I'm like, "No, you just expended all this energy, and you need to nourish your bodies now." So
Yes.
yeah, so that was a challenge, but I found when my kids were little, they were more likely to try what I gave them. They were okay with that. My kids weren't terribly picky. They were pretty healthy-ish. What's a real challenge, I think, for every parent is when they go to school, your children, they're exposed to what everyone else is eating, and kids inherently are going to crave sweet things. And so if you see someone else and, junk food tastes good. And if you see
Yeah.
that, you're going to want that. Or if you go to a birthday party and you have this. And I'm really not against having birthday cake and, having treats, but they just have to be not all the time with that. So, So
the
we did our
balance.
best. Yes, life is about balance, right?
It's about balance, and I see that and witness that through my clients and even close friends, right? And then I have witnessed my friend, she has 2 kids, 4 and 3 years old. Her, nutrition in the home, how has been, right? And now she's making the transitioning with the school. It's totally different, and she sends, like, food for them. Sometimes they come back to the house, they did not eat the food and all of that, and the first question that I asked her, I was like, "How are you talking with them? How you just like sharing this transition with them and all?" Because kids, we used to like people like in all and us before, we used to think that kids doesn't have the awareness, they're not gonna understand. But they do because the brain is receiving the auditory information, and then later on they're going to have that programming, so then they can make a better choices but through the balance, right? And she did not allow them to have like sweet stuff until like 2 years old, 3 years old, which is incredible because sugar it's really addictive to the brain. And the crazy stuff, Dr. Amy, is just like sugar, it's the first contact that we have when we're born, because whenever the mom is feeding the baby, she has sugar within. So then that's how it is translated or like transpassed for the kid through the milk. How crazy is that? So the brain already got their addiction to the sugar, but and then the way that we cope that throughout the childhood, it's a little different. It's just the awareness of the parents and just to educate them. So I do believe it's really a challenge, but like we are talking, it everything's about the awareness. As long as I'm receiving the awareness, it's my power to take action towards to the awareness and not neglect in a way, because it's not easy. Not easy at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we are seeking for the new generation and to the legacy that we're gonna leave in this world, we need to stand up for that.
So it was important to me when I was talking with the parents to, not place blame or to shame them, just to acknowledge, yes, this is hard and we all deal with it. But here's the reality, your child is going to become ill unless we make some changes. So, and some parents were more receptive to that than others.
Oh, how beautiful. And I love the values of your work, which is the education. For me, it's the same way, right? How to prevent, how to get in a old stage of our age, and we have mobility, and we have not the codependency on like medication, because if we see that the whole system is designed for you to be dependable on them instead of like being empowered and to
Right.
prevent. So it's a whole system, the food, and that's why I feel very fortunate with you to talk about your own practice and the way that you kind of disconnected from this system because you have a holistic approach with the human, which is being preventative. And so, really empowering people for them to make better decisions in life. And how was it for you to make that transition, like to stop working from somebody else to get your own business? Could you share with us?
Yeah, so it was a really interesting time. The position I had at the health department was eliminated. And so I said, huh. And I actually got excited. Some people are like, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Because
Yeah.
I was comfortable and I wouldn't have left had I not had a little push.
Mhm.
So I was looking for, I was doing a lot of education with the staff as well. So I was working with adults as well and really nutrition focused. So I was looking for jobs that would kind of fulfill that need, that I could use that professionally. And I just couldn't find anything. And my coworkers said, well, why don't you start your own thing? And I said, I can't do that. And then I went, oh, maybe I can. And then, so I remembered the book. So the book I had put on the shelf,
Yeah.
grabbed the book, reread it, redid the exercises inside with where I am now, or
Mhm.
that was 10 years ago from here. But So I came up with a plan, and we have a wonderful, I think most counties do have it. The Small Business Association will actually sit for free with you and go over your idea, help you develop a business plan, and give you some advice. So I started there. I said, "This is my idea. What do you think?" And they said, "That's a great idea." And so I wrote a business plan, and it was very difficult actually, because they say, what's your revenue stream going to look like? I don't know. I know what I'm capable of doing, but when you first open a practice, people don't just all of a sudden show up.
Yes.
But I went through everything, and the initial plan that I developed is not what I'm doing now, because of course things evolve and you see what works and what doesn't. And so it's grown. When I first started, it was going to be a mobile business actually out of a van.
Uh-huh.
That did not work.
We as a sorry.
What?
As entrepreneurs, right,
Yeah.
we adjust to the market
Yes. Constantly. Yes.
every day. It's just kind of a little crazy how our brain have this ability to be resilient and to create. That's why you felt so excited to like, okay, I can create that. And the excitement for exploring and new stages of your life and your journey. And I think the most important because you wanted to serve. And when we wanted to serve, we don't see those barriers. Actually, we just go. And then in the middle of the journey, we start to find out the things and experiencing everything.
Yep. Yep. So I didn't know if it was gonna work. I just, I always any big decision I make, I said, "Okay, what's the worst thing that can happen if this doesn't work?" And say, "Okay, well, then I have to get a real job." So it was always, and luckily at that time my husband was working, and so we were able, because when you first start a business, you don't always make money right away.
Hmm.
So we had a little bit of breathing room. I said, "Okay, this is how much, we can spend. This is how long we can go without my salary." Because I was never, some people will go for it and take a chance and hopefully it works out, but I just couldn't risk the well-being of my family on a dream. Though some people do and it works and I'm proud of them. But for me, I was very baby steps. I found a room to rent. So my clinic was out of one room, a tiny little thing. And then we started to have some regular business. And I said, "Oh, I can afford a bigger place of my own," which I did. And I actually met two women in similar fields that rented space from me. So I met a massage therapist and an esthetician, and they were independent, but we kind of shared that space. And
Yeah.
that worked for a couple of years. That worked for us. We kind of just fed off each other and marketed together and stuff like
Beautiful, beautiful. It's a team, right? Whenever we come along together with people that has the same vision and they are willing to collaborate, we can have that space and the space grow together to the higher source, which is beautiful. And then later in life, things we start to move and to shift, and that is okay too.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
I do believe with like entrepreneur life, it's just like that. We are just reinventing ourselves and go this way. And then I see that we are always challenging ourselves.
Yes.
It's crazy, but it's just not that crazy because we have that drive and we seek for this challenge. That's why whenever the person that suggests that for you, why don't you open your own clinic? And at the first you could not just like grab it the idea, but later you're just like, yes, I can do that because of that drive and then the self-confidence and the support, because I do believe that your husband and you coming along together and talk and plan stuff, because it's beautiful that you took baby steps because they are more sustainable than just like taking a risk. And I understand that on my own. So
Right.
got so excited. Okay, I'm gonna be doing this business. Have so many business throughout life because you got so excited. Okay, let me do it. And I did not have that part of my brain planning, thinking about the possibilities being positive and negative. but that's how I learned. You had the opportunity to interview Linda, which she
Yes,
does the human design, right? And so my human design is the one that I go with experiences in life. So for me to understand how life works, that kind of thing, I need to go through the experience.
yes,
So and it's beautiful, but at the same time, at the beginning was not that beautiful because I did not know that.
right. Yes,
And so later you just start learning more about yourself. How can you just navigate it on that? And so it's just nice. Another thing that got me very interesting with the name of your business,
yes,
Amethyst, right?
yes,
And then I share with you that day that was about the amethyst crystal and all of that. Nowadays, after 10 years that you had that plan and your guides or your intuition was guiding you to that path, and then you have a clinic name with the holistic approach with the
yes,
crystal, and then
yes.
you are a holistic practitioner. Would you like to expand in that to see the meaning of the name, or what does that represent for you?
Yes. So when I was deciding what to name the business, I was looking for things that were symbolic. So symbolic of wellness, of healing, of vitality. And I just was looking. And finally, I just thought, what are stones of healing? And I came across the amethyst. And the more, again, it was it's pretty, it's purple, and it starts with an A like Amy does. And I said, okay, I can work with this. And so then it took off. My best friend is a graphic designer. So she made me this beautiful logo with the amethyst. And I took branding very seriously. I don't know if you can see my hair is a little purple. My car is purple. My clinic is purple. But people
So
really,
that you have like a necklace, and the necklace is with the amethyst.
so this one is not the amethyst actually, though I do wear an amethyst often. This one, I can't remember the name of the stone, but it's supposed to help with clear communication. So it seemed appropriate for today. And so my clinic doesn't actually deal in crystals, though I have interviewed practitioners who, are trained in crystals and what they do, and they use them for a specific purpose. I've always been drawn to them without really knowing what they mean. So I was drawn to the amethyst, and it was suggested to me that that wasn't a coincidence, that there was a reason I chose amethyst, not just that it's pretty, but so it's something so you asked about like my holistic practices, and I am at a stage now where I'm actually exploring a lot of those things through the podcast where I'm
Oh,
talking
nice.
about things, and most of the time I really don't know. And so I'm interviewing someone saying, so tell me, what does this crystal mean? Like, or whatever their expertise is. And sometimes it's stuff that I agree with. Sometimes I say, okay, I never thought about it that way. But I'm definitely open to different possibilities, things I don't know about. And I'm really enjoying learning about those things.
Yeah, how beautiful. And I'm the same way. For me, it's just like having the beginning in mind, right? Because if you look in that sky that we have above us, right? It's just so just like huge. The same sky that we have in here in United States has in Brazil and around of the world. And like whenever I look up, and then I just ask, who am I in this world looking to that beautiful and huge sky? And then if you start to see like in our daily basis, that is so much for us to learn. That is so much in life that we are not even aware. And then I always ask God, how can I serve you today? How can I learn? Because I love intellectual things. Like I love to learn. And how can I exchange with others? How can I serve? Because if you thinking about it, we are in the same boat, Amy, actually, because the only thing that we are sure about life that we're all gonna die physically and pay taxes every year.
Yes, taxes.
We have a due on April 15th.
Um,
So then knowing that physically I'm gonna die, what is consciousness? What is the spirit? What is awareness? Why do I have dreams? And whenever I'm dreaming, I see myself in the dream, or either I'm participating in the dream. So how can I challenge my belief systems? Because just like you mentioned, right? So whenever I am just interacting with somebody and I don't have their awareness or that knowledge, but sometimes that will just having some frictions with my belief system, and I love it because that make me go and look forward. And I was like, why I'm feeling this way? If I'm feeling this way, it's something that I need to take a look at inside and not projecting on others, because I am not the person that I am reactive to anything, right? Or whenever that happen, it's just because I'm not having the awareness and then my body's reacting that way. But and then I'm becoming aware of their reaction, because as we've been working throughout the years with self-awareness, whom am I, and those kind of things, you are aware about your patterns. And then whenever I have something that I don't agree with, I love it because that make me go for it and just like, okay, how can I shift that? Because I do understand and I have experienced before that I will integrate something in my awareness, in my being, that I was not even aware about life. And that is the beauty. So I totally understand your viewpoint in this interaction, because that is one of the reason that I create this podcast, is just to get this connection, these intimate moments, and to listen to people, their stories, what they've been through, how challenging it was for them to break through emotionally. Because if we all have one thing in common, Amy, it's that we are all emotional beings. We are social beings and we experience life through our emotions. And so, knowing that, how can I just interact with somebody that has been this journey of self growth, and how can I serve others? Because one of the things that really helped me throughout the years is just reading. Just like you were saying, oh, the book that I read it, and then I had that experience. I built my business upon that book. And so now, how can I experience that? How can I share that with others? Because I thought that nobody couldn't have the same experience that I did it in the past. However, they had the same emotions like sadness, hurt, excitement. So whenever we exchange with others, that gave us the perspective of life in a way. And so for me, it's just the beauty of it. And to be in here now, exchanging that with you, it's really a gift. And for whoever is listening to us to feel inspired and to, okay, have the breakthroughs, right? So if they are not reading a book, they are listening to us for this safe space that we are creating, and just to share our own experience. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yes. How has been then the journey for you with the podcast, like you were saying?
Yes. So the podcast is about 6 months old right now, meaning I've been doing it for 6 months. So that idea,
Congratulations.
yeah, so that idea came out. So I had run my business and it's still going. Amethyst Wellness for 10 years. And I have had the ability to grow the team and to hire staff. And I started to step back a little bit from the everyday operations. And I kind of felt like a turning point for me. I turned 50 and
Wow, really?
yeah, I'm 50.
Congratulations.
So I've always been very goal oriented, very driven. And I had done these things and then I turned 50 and I said, oh, well, what's next? And I kind of had some despair because I didn't know what is next. I have to have a goal. Like I've already done X, Y, and Z. I need a goal. And uh, so that's just how it started. The idea of having a podcast. And I finally started doing it. And again, it's something new. Is it going to work? Is it not? I don't know. But I said, I'll just have fun doing it. I'll just meet new people and have conversations and we'll see.
Yeah, it's all about having fun. Totally. And that's exactly what drove me to this moment, right? Because I was like, oh, I don't want to leave where I am at now. People over here so close minded, that kind of thing. And I was like, what can I do in order for me to keep that stimulation in my brain, right? To exchange with others. And so that's how they oh, the podcasts, and I love talking, I love listen to people, and it's just so beautiful how I can learn just to the listening. And then I started just like you, I launched my podcast last October too. It's new and then very excited for the future. I don't know what's going to be the future either because it's about like me having fun today. So tomorrow, I don't know what tomorrow is going to hold, but as long as I'm living in the present moment and letting go control and just like serving and first serving God. And then as I'm serving God, I'm serving myself as well. And I'm serving others because we are one, if you will. We are living the same boat. We just experience life in a different customs. You have your custom, I have my custom, my body in here, and so you're serving the different aspects. And I thought it was very interesting whenever you mention, oh, I'm 50 and you don't look like. So congratulations because your
Yeah.
nutrition and your exercise has been very good.
So probably and I tell people, because I have an anti-aging clinic, but I do say the most important thing is what you're putting in your body and how you're treating your body, because the wrong foods can be very inflammatory. And yeah, so they can make us sick from the inside. And that kind of shows as we go out. But yes, physical activity and drinking enough water and then sunscreen, because we live in Florida, right? Um,
Yes.
and the sun, there are many benefits of the sun, but it can be aging to our skin. So, we need that protection.
Yeah, it's just like it's beautiful the vitamin D that we can
Yes.
receive it from, but like you're saying, the protection with, right? And I found nowadays like everything that could be natural that can prevent, right, myself with like the protection in the sunscreen, stuff like that. So I always look for the natural ones.
Yes.
So
Very
this
important.
way yes, this way I'm still protecting my body naturally because it's very important. And I would like you to extend that because another day I was just like observing how people interact with like organic or even being a vegan. So the market has a huge psychological way of like manipulate things in people because they have this impression organic is good or like vegan is good. They don't go to the back of the product to analyze the ingredients that is in there. They just connect. Organic is good, buy it. And then vegan is good, buy it. Could you extend that on like the nutrients and the every
So the organic is going to be more important. There are certain items like the dirty dozen, there are certain produce items that are more likely to contain pesticides and if they're made conventionally. So we always tell people, because if sometimes it can become expensive. And so not everyone can afford 100% organic items. So I would say, okay, let's prioritize. Like, I think broccoli made the bad list. So when I go to the store, I make sure I get the organic broccoli when it's available. And sometimes it's not. And so broccoli is still good. It's just, it's better. A better choice would be that organic one. As far as the packaged items with the labels, I always use caution there, because if it's in a package, it had to be manipulated in some way. It doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's not in the original form that God made it, right? So
yes.
so we did something to it and put it in this package. So are the ingredients organic? Sometimes that can be more important if it's, let's say, an oat or a grain. I don't necessarily say, oh, just look for the label that says organic and buy it. It just depends on what you're buying, whether that's important. But I really would say limit those things that are in a package that don't look like whole food, uh, which, yeah. So that's pretty much what I say. And as far as labels go, they don't necessarily have to put every single thing on there. So it can be difficult. So, but again, if you're reading the label and it says apple, if it says, I don't know, it'll say cornstarch or something. Okay, cornstarch might be a little bad, but the more whole the ingredient list is, the better you are. But almost anything in a package, when you go down that label, you're going to have words you can't pronounce, and there are chemicals and things, because that's how it stays good on the shelf, you know?
Yeah, totally agree with you. And one thing that we did it created as a humans, right? We mixed the fat and sugar to
Right.
make that good. And
Right.
that is something that we cannot find in nature because nature doesn't have that mix of like sugar and fat. And that's how our brain got triggered with that. And so the big companies, they are aware about that. And just like you say, the label, whenever I see like that bunch of names, like let it go this because this is a trash and like processed foods and all of that. And so people really need to go for it and wanted to do that kind of research. And especially like nowadays we have cell phones. It is on our hands. Why can I not like research? Does this impact my health or that kind of thing? Right? And compare what can I do with this? And just like you mentioned, it's a crucial point in our aging because nutrition, it's, I mean, everything that we eat affect our second brain, which is our gut. So our gut, it's our second brain, and everything that we process in our gut, it's going to connect with our cognitive system. And so I'm gonna have more energy. We have like the chi, the energy within us, right? The natural, the kundalini, the energy that you want to classify, right? So if we don't fulfill our body, which is our vessel, correctly, we are not helping that flow of energy to take a place. And people think like, oh, I'm tired because it's the food that you're eating and it's the exercise that you're not doing it. And it's really sad when I see around, and especially like in the marketing area, like with the food, anything too, and especially like for the skincare, hair, there is so much crabs in there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It is just sad, but what is the most rewarding part of your work nowadays? Because you started work with kids and now you have like a anti-age clinic. So
Right.
it's a little
Completely different. Yes. Yeah. So it's very rewarding. My clinic tends to attract more mature, mostly women, but we have men too, but they are older, sometimes not necessarily old, but sometimes late 30s, sometimes into 70s, is our bread and butter there. But we go through things as our hormones change because we do a lot of hormone management as well. But that just impacts so many aspects of our lives. And so when we can help somebody balance their hormones, their relationships are better, they're better at work, and they feel better. And then, if it's important to them, we can help them look better. Though I can say that my passion so much is on the wellness side of things. But sometimes if I do a little something aesthetically for somebody and they just feel more confident about themselves. And, it's just nice to give them that to make them feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, you do what can you do? And any other than that, it's up to them to look forward in everything because real transformations come from in out, not out in. And especially like us being women, right? We have all of these beautiful things and hair and the clothes, all of that. We would like to look good. But before that, I would love to feel good with myself and lovely and all of that, not having that self validation from the external world because it's a cycle that it's not fulfilled because you always going to keep chasing that will, and so, and especially like changing hormones. Oh my
Mm.
God, we have that beautiful divine gift within us, right? So the hormones and the emotional, I call roller coasters that we
Right.
have because we have our period every month. But also, it's so empowering when you start to understand your body. You start to understand that each phase of your period has something to show you, and then you need to rest, and then you just like more social because whenever you're doing the ovulation part of your cycle, you go in social, and then you have the introspective moment. This is so powerful in knowing what to eat in those
Right.
moments too.
Right.
And how has been for you that transition to
My
personally?
goodness. So I've been doing, helping people with their hormones for a long time. But when it happened to me, I was a little resistant. I was like, no, I'm not in menopause. I'm only 50. I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm 50. Yeah. Okay, this is happening. And I went through the same things my clients have talked about for years. I'm like, okay, this is what they meant. And it does make me more empathetic because people will come in their first visit with me and they'll just start crying because they feel so bad. And I'm like, I know how you feel. I understand. Now, here's what we can do. Here's what we can do,
Yeah.
because we're about aging healthier, but we're not stopping aging because there's only one way to not to age, and that's to die. So we're going to keep aging. We just want to stay healthy and strong and feel good as we can and do the things we want to do. But yeah, it's a journey for me. And I kind of try to follow my own advice. I'm like, okay, if you were the patient, what would you do? I'm like, okay. We're still working on it because it's not a one and done when you're in menopause. It could take a little bit to get things just right.
It's just so funny. I'm just turning 40 years this year, right? So it has been a change already because our nervous system and our body, the hormones and everything. So this week I wake up in the middle of the night too, and I was feeling so hot. And then I don't have the heater in my place. I don't turn it on because I like the windows open so I can have fresh air, right? But then in the middle of the night, I wake up, I feel so hot. I was like, maybe it would be that kind of symptom or what? I had it that all, right?
So that is perimenopause. So and that lasts for years. It's a term, but our hormones start to change, and it doesn't mean you're going into menopause, but you're going to have those fluctuations, and it can be a challenging time because a lot of practitioners don't know what to do with perimenopause. And again, it's a little bit trial and error because everyone's different. And so when we're developing a treatment plan for somebody, like, okay, well, this is where we're starting, but I'm really relying on feedback from my clients to determine the direction and to get them feeling as good as they can.
Yeah. And what I have as a client looking forward is just like self intimacy. I have a lot of clients come in. And especially like whenever they have like premenopause and the menopause too. So the average of age is very interesting. And I love that because that gives me the opportunity to witness that, just like you, to witness that and to prepare or even just to be there for people. Because what people realize that physical intimacy has shifted because of the emotional and mental intimacy. Right? Because everything starts internal, right? And whenever you're talking about the acceptance, okay, I'm 50, I'm over here. It's just the self acceptance. And whenever I start to dialogue with my clients about self intimacy, they were not even aware that the physical intimacy, it's not flowing because of like the emotional and mental intimacy, and because they are not aware about that and they are becoming aware, and then that is the next step, which is to communicate with the partner. And once we communicate with the partner, and if the partner is in the same page with them, right? Because throughout the years, we shift the way that we experience the physical intimacy. And especially we are very on the mental level, on like the emotional level. Because for the guys, just to get excited, they are more visual than
It's
us,
physical.
right?
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
just need to see something and boom, some of it from whoever it's sapiosexual, it's a little different. So it's more on the mind. But and then I start to educate my clients on that regard as well. And so whenever I start to make that education, to share that with them and get the partner also in the same page, they start to experience intimacy in another level. And then goes like, wow, this is really cool because, I'm not having the physical intimacy as I used to have before, but now I'm having much more experiences, good experience. I'm having much more pleasure and like the orgasm effect. It's not only on the physical level, but it's on the mental level. And then they're just like so excited and just like, okay, now I'm starting just to get in the flow with menopause and life. It has been so cool.
Yeah. So a lot of our clients, they'll come to us for the hormones expecting their libido to improve. And many times it does, but sometimes they'll say it didn't work. And they'll say that's because we're emotional creatures. So if you're having stress at work or in your marriage, or just sometimes at this age where we have children that are aging, but we also have parents that are aging. So we have a lot of stress. And so if that's not being channeled properly, you're not going to want to be intimate, whether it's an issue with your partner or just an issue within yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I have a lot of empty nesters. And so, like, that process too, about that age, some like people that are going through in a divorce, they are trying to save their marriage, trying to save the marriage through the physicality, like, oh, I'm not having more sex. And then sometimes, like, oh, my husband is shit on me, I'm cheating on my husband, that kind of thing. And so, whenever you present the entire picture for them, they start to realize the dots. Hey, you've been in this journey dedicating for your family 20 years, 30 years. You disconnected from who you are. So then your husband too, because both of you guys were dedicated for the family. So now they are out of the house. It's just two strangers looking for each other. And so now what? And they start to realize a few aspects that they don't like it on each other, but because they did not have that time in that moment to get to know each other. Because whenever they have early kids in life, in the marriage, you don't have that opportunity to get to know who you are, because all of your attention and dedication is for the kids, not for each other. And that's another thing that I shared with them too. So you are in this path, in this journey, and you forgot about your sensuality, your process with your husband. And that cannot be missed, because you both are human creatures, like seeking for that connection, not physically, but mental, emotionally. For them, the physicality to manifest, and then you can having that experience. So yes, it's really fascinating just to witness how people are just having that dynamic. How can they navigate it on that? So I'm very grateful that you're doing your work in that side, like helping, supporting them physically. And I'm doing my best over here, also coaching them through that intimacy. And Dr. Amy, as we are getting to the final moment of our podcast, I just would like to say thank you so much for you to being here with us, sharing your journey, and to be vulnerable in this moment. So I appreciate that. What is one message that you couldn't share with all of us? And this message we're going to have in our cell phone, all of the outdoors, is going to be spread all around of the world. What would be your message for us now?
Okay. So I had to think about it for a second because I want it to be good. Um,
Take your time.
yes. Yes. So I would encourage everyone just to really explore their life's purpose and to really keep going. And if you've had the same career for 30 years, it doesn't mean that you're done. To just keep questioning and learning and exploring knowledge and just never give up on that curiosity about life and other people.
I love that. Thank you. Oh, curiosity.
Yes.
Yes. Never
Yes.
lose the childhood, like being curious about life and imagine and how can I create. So I love what you say, because that is just one of my principles, just to explore. And whenever we have that mindset, right, exploring and trying, that's why we are entrepreneurs, because we like to explore. So thank you so much for being here with us, and for you that is a listen to us. We're gonna have Dr. Amy links in the description. So please reach out for her. So thank you for listening, and stay connected for the next episode. Thank you. Bye.